Should be live. Cool.
Cool. Hi, folks. Welcome to this week's website redesign initiative meeting. This is our first meeting of December, and we do these bi-monthly. So welcome if you've been before, and if you haven't, welcome for the first time. I've just brewed myself a brand new cup of tea. Where I am right now, it's pretty early in the morning, and this is what I need to get going. Between tea and coffee, tea is the only thing I'm allowed to keep at home. It's a self-imposed rule. Anyway, I think we'll just get some introductions going so we can get started with the meeting. We have four items on our agenda, which is pretty good. It gives us some flexibility in terms of time. But let's start with introductions. Hi, I'm Manil. I co-champion this initiative with Adam Miller. I am a developer advocate at InVision. Next up on my screen, we have Tierney.
Hey, I'm Tierney Siren. I'm currently a developer advocate in NodeSource, and I'm a committee member. It's been so long since I've given a spiel like this. Committee member, contributor to website redesign initiative, various other things in the Node projects, and then just generally building kind of tools for Node people to have a better time with Node.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And next up, we have Lidor on my screen.
Hi, hello everyone. Lidor. I'm developer at Nielsen Marketing Cloud Engineering. Open source lover, and exciting to take part in the amazing initiative of website redesign.
Right, that's awesome.
Cool.
That concludes our introductions. For the people who have tuned in to our Zoom, if you're on YouTube, we are continuing to stream for the next hour or so. Awesome. I'm pulling up the Notes Google Doc. If you are in the Zoom call, please add yourself to the list of people present, so just so we can keep track and know who's been part of the discussion. I'm going to try and take some notes as we speak, but because my multitasking is actually pretty terrible, I would also appreciate anyone who has who's saying something to drop notes into the document, but no pressure.
Cool thing.
Rad. Okay. Okay. The structure of this meeting is going to be, for the first 5 minutes for each issue, roughly 5 minutes max, we're going to just give ourselves some time to get familiar with what we're talking about. I understand some of these issues have not come up in recent meetings. Sometimes they cycle on and off our agenda. So we're going to give ourselves a couple of minutes to get familiar, and then we're going to time box each issue to about 10 minutes maximum discussion so we can make sure we get to all of them. How's that sound to y'all?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
So first up, we have issue 428 in the community repo. And that has to do with, oh, my internet is slow too. I don't think it's just yours, Tierney. It's just all our internets are terrible.
Over the world.
Actually, one of my goals, while it's still, wow, it's still loading, is to go to countries and then screenshot my speed tests on fast.com and then just put that out there to see what it's like. It's a good experience. Okay, so we have the contributor cards. It's the Node.js contributor cards issue number 428. The idea is related to the Node Foundation having created little portable business cards that they'd shared at conferences, for example, at the Node.js Interactive earlier this year. The cards just have information that people might find useful if they're just getting started for the Node.js project, like helpful links and such. And at that summit, Tierney, who's on the call right now, had discussed the possibility of creating one specifically for contributors so that we can share that with other people who are interested in getting started. And there's a reference document in here that goes to a Google document. It's in the issue.
Mhm.
So if you're able to click into it, you see that on the front, it has a description of what Node is and the foundation. And on the back, it has links to an email for information and links to community and resources and our Medium page, etc. Oh, and of course, our GitHub. So now the idea is that it evolved into setting this up as an online, like in a virtual version for this kind of business card, so that we could give the link to people where they could go and it would be their launch off point for anything Node.js. The upside to this would be that we would be able to update it pretty quickly in case things changed. And it would also, we would be able to keep it consistent with the website redesign and the way it was progressing. And also any initiatives that we would have to get people on board, we could quickly put it there instead of having to update thousands of business cards that we might have printed out at what point in time and mailed them off to all the different contributors we have living around the world. So progress so far, it's there is a static point of entry site. I'd like put that together a little while ago. I haven't yet deployed that, so that's on me to deploy that so that we can all give feedback to it. And after that, the next steps would be to design the card. So basically design what the site would actually look like and see if that's something we'd like to connect to the nodejs.org site, so that it would be part of it. Oh, go on, Tierney.
So one question I did have is, I might have misunderstood slightly. So I think, or what I had understood when we discussed it was like having a single URL, like you mentioned, but then just be able to have that URL on the card rather than having the card, like actually still have the printout, but be able to give people a single URL to go to that we can change out. Are we still planning on doing the physical card?
Oh, yeah. I may have been unclear when going over the background. That to me was exactly what we had still planned. We do the physical card, but we don't need to change the URL. That stays constant. And what we change is what's available on the website. Is that
cool.
what you had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Sweet. This is the reason we have these meetings, so we're all on the same page. Physical card to link to same site that will change. I'm talking out loud because I'm writing a note to the people who are on YouTube. This is what I do. So with that, I'm not sure, like Adam has mentioned that, and let me go back to our redesign initiative meeting. Adam mentioned that this could be this could evolve into our community page. So being a launch off point, it could be actually our community page, which is a launch off point, which would lead then to the new website's content. I'm wondering how that would look, because the way I had imagined it, it was just a list of links that we continued to update, but by no means is that probably the most effective way to get people contributing. If that link is supposed to be the single point of entry and the goal of that is to help people get started with Node.js, maybe that's not the most effective thing. So I think this session can be about how we can do better.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely, I agree. And I think I agree with you. And I think that this link would need to be more focused because like, okay, so imagine you or I, or, anyone who's a contributor, lead anyone, has this card and like, cool, we're at a Node school or we're at a Node.js meetup and someone's interested in contributing. And this happens to me constantly. Someone's interested in contributing. I give them this card and say like, here's this, you can go to this URL and like, you can like look at this specific link. Like if they're interested in internationalization, you can look at this specific link on the page and it'll take you to where you can get started with that. Or, whatever, like point them to a specific thing because they've expressed an interest in that, whether it's technical, non-technical. I don't necessarily know if that's the best thing for like the community page as a whole. I think that the community page is going to end up having much more depth than that. I think that this can be an element of the community page, and like this can be one of the navigation items for the community page, and like, here's the link to give to people. Like, you don't have to have the card, but you can give this link to people if they want to get started. And so that's I think that this should be an element, but I don't necessarily know if this can or should be the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like I would agree with that, mainly because when people are given a link, it probably doesn't help to be overloaded with information. So probably sending them straight to the community page would not be necessarily the best thing. The community page may have way more information than we're willing to give someone who in that moment has walked up to you and asked about how they want to contribute. Yeah. So I understand your comment as the link needs to be more focused, as being, it needs to be very focused on its sole purpose, which is to help someone who's just walked up to someone in a meetup or in person, or maybe even online on Twitter. It's like, how do I get started contributing? Visit this. And it's supposed to solve that particular problem.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even for contributors, it's a resource of like, okay, this person's asking about this. I'm not involved in that. I can just give, like, you can even cut out the middleman and go to the link that they're looking for and not make them go through that process. Like, it's still even useful for us.
Oh, right. Okay.
So like, say someone asks me about internationalization on Twitter and I'm not involved. I am involved in it, but I'm not involved in it. I know that I can go to this page as a resource to find what they need to do, or how I can get them involved. And so like, it's still a useful thing, independent, like as an independent kind of cellular thing, like its own body.
True. I mean, we are quite lucky that we have on the call someone who is a pretty new contributor, and I'm actually interested to hear how they found out about it and whether something like this would have been useful for them, and if it would, in what form. Leader, would you be able to like share a bit of your perspective on how you feel this could be quite like effective or useful to people?
Sure. Yeah, I'm new contributor, so it's related to me. I feel Kearney is right. So we need to put some one link, and people get in and get information, and not search on the repos for information. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, we ask a lot, I think, Tierney, of people when we say search the repo for the right information, because our readmes can be really long.
Yep, they sure can. And I mean, like, even, finding good first issues is like, first they have to know what the label is. They have to know how to navigate GitHub to find the issue or find the label, and then have to go into those issues and then hope that like that is, set up appropriately. So yeah, I think there's like cutting out a lot of those interim steps would hopefully be helpful in that.
I like. Oh, go ahead, Leader.
No, okay, yeah, I'm agree with Tony, but keep going, keep going.
I was saying that it seems like we need, when we ask people to go straight to the repo, we're assuming a certain amount of knowledge on how to navigate our repo and how we structure our information, which is like very useful. It helps keep us on track. If we didn't have structure, it would be counterproductive, but it also needs that element of people need to know that we tend to post links on each repo to good first issues, or we tend to put like list the people involved on them so that they have someone to contact. But someone who's never done an open source project before might not be aware of that, because a lot of projects don't follow this convention. We've had time to hone it.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there an action item we can take out of this discussion? For interest of time, I want to time box it. An action item just so there doesn't have to be, but if there is an action item we can use to move this issue forward, aside from the fact that I still do need to deploy the static site, which
Yeah, I mean, so if you deploy the static site, I can spend some time today actually working on that card, and like just having a basic design.
Okay, rad. That's cool because the site has like no design; it's text. That was my part of it. That's great. Okay, so I'll action item to deploy site. Tierney, I heard that as, are you suggesting that like you are willing to take an action item to design the card?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Lidor, totally voluntary. I'm wondering if after Tierney designs the card and we have something going, you would be willing to provide feedback on it, because I think your perspective would be super valuable because you have the most relevant insight right now, because we have probably been in the project long enough that we have a certain amount of bias about familiarity. So if you're willing, we could appreciate it.
Sure, but yeah, definitely I can give more feedback. And just for be clear, and if I understood clear, this will be online URL and physical card that you will share in a meeting.
Yep. Yeah. So the card will be a physical thing that we print out. The Node.js Foundation prints out, and then the URL on the back will be like the thing that Manil has built, that will be deployed to the website. So I assume like nodejs.com/ or .org/ card or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it will be accessible without the card, obviously, but having something physical that people can kind of use will be, a good entry point to that.
Yeah, it will be entry point, and so the information in this point will be not to look at another repo. You can, if you are a new contributor, you can get in this link and find some extra information about how to contribute and something like this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So sure, I will give more feedback.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm writing that down. We have your handle on the repo, right, Lidor?
Again?
We have your GitHub handle on the website redesign repo. I should be able to find you on it.
Yes, I think yes.
Oh, awesome. Great. Just confirming that. Just want to make sure I have a way to reach you before the next meeting. Tag you in it. That's awesome. Yeah, your perspective would be great. It doesn't even have to follow like the expectations necessarily in the detail that we've mentioned. It's more about what you would need to get started. That's the perspective we're looking for. If it needs a complete rethink, that's totally cool.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Great. Okay, so we're at 9:27. Moving on to the second item on our agenda. We have GitHub website redesign issue 107. And a quick reminder, with the action items that I have thrown into the notes, I will make a PR with the notes, and I'll also make another issue tagging us all in the action item so we have something to refer to before the next meeting.
That's good.
Okay, tech stack consideration. Issue number 107, opened by Mohit. Mohit is not at the meeting with us today, so I will just quickly need to read through what this is. I am posting a link to that in the Zoom chat. And anyone on YouTube should be able to get a link to the issue from the meeting issue. Should be linked right there, issue number 107. If you're hearing very loud beeps, that's my kettle. It thinks I need more tea.
No worries.
Tech stack consideration. Does anyone here have more context that they might have gleaned from a previous meeting? Otherwise, I want to.
I think Adam talked about Gatsby, and they will take part on Gatsby guys. Maybe need to take part in this project. That's what I remember.
Oh, that's right. Yes. We had started talking about tech stack. It's been something we've held off for several months now. Like, it's very exciting to talk about tech stack, but we wanted to have all our ducks in a row before we dived into that particular part of our planning. But the conversation around this actually started at Node.js Interactive. And one possible tool that we'd landed on was Gatsby, the static site generator. And that's something that there was general consensus around using for our site. I personally feel like that would be quite useful. It means that people will continue to be able to, like, there is a large number of people who would be able to contribute to maintaining this particular site, but I'm open to any discussions around it. I also think that there is an update here where for the skeleton site, there would be another week that we need to wait to resolve some issues. So issue number 107, for real discussion to happen, we may need to wait until the next meeting. But there's no reason we can't capture some thoughts about it on our notes if people wanted to chime in at this point.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I was participating in those discussions because I've been kind of checked out for a bit just because I've had other things in life going on. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty pro Gatsby. From what I understood, we were going down the more of a do-it-yourself route, which I'd prefer not to do. And you know, I agree that Gatsby is a nice medium, or kind of in between, where it would allow people to contribute. It also does have a small startup team behind it, which I know is a very dedicated team to open source. You know, I know a few of them personally. I'm willing to put my trust in that product and that platform and that project. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't have any issue with that. And I'm excited at that prospect because I wanted to use Gatsby for something, and so this would be a good way to start doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to use it in production if you're not already using it.
Exactly.
I think the development around the small startup company behind Gatsby is a relatively new thing. When it was first raised as an option, I think by you at Tierney at the Node.js Interactive, it was still an open source project that still had that same dedicated community behind it, but they were not yet a company. I guess now with those developments, it is more, say, what quote unquote a better business decision to be able to rely on something that we know we won't have to change in the near term because it's going to last.
Yep, absolutely.
I am making a quick note in documentation for that. Around its company and expectation of longevity. Cool. I realize that when I write notes, sometimes it sounds very formal. It's not intentional. Okay. Was there anything that anyone on the call wanted to add to that particular meeting item, issue number 107 and Gatsby in our tech stack?
No.
All right. I will mark that as a general amount of consensus, and we shall move on to issue number 99 in website redesign, which is host a documentation hackathon. So for context, the documentation hackathon was an issue that was raised several months ago around being able to solve the problem of being able to create a cadence around PRing new docs into website redesign. By docs, we're actually thinking probably more getting started and quick start guides. But correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone on the call has more context than that. Because our docs actually live in core. So the idea for docs hackathons over here would be that these docs would be around getting started and quick start guides for people to use Node with different tools.
So one
go ahead.
question about this: is this in person or is this like a remote thing?
I think the idea initially started off as being like flexible. So far, all the progress I've had on it is that I have experienced personally, just on my end, so I'm just speaking for myself, is I've experienced personally in-person docs hackathons, and they're very much ad hoc, where these docs hackathons happen as part of a local Node School meetup that I'm part of. And what we end up doing is, because people are just getting started in open source, this is the specific subset of Node School meetup. It's an intro to open source sort of meetup. Docs are a really good way to get familiar with that. So once we get past the whole process of getting people started with the idea of like PRing and rebasing and how we communicate in issues, the general intro stuff, which mental node probably should be something we include maybe in the cards in some manner. Anyway, once we get past that, we have several times dived into writing up draft documents that people can submit into the repo. So in the past, it has happened where once a month, several people at those meetings would PR a couple of documents into the repo. The last time it happened, that did not happen. The meetup took a different direction, but it wasn't a dedicated meetup for documentation. So it wasn't entirely unexpected. I wonder if there is something about this idea that we can give to make it less ad hoc, where one of us just happens to host a docs hackathon and maybe give people some structure around how to get it done.
Yeah, I might be able to do that, not this month, but possibly next month in New York. It depends on certain things, but yeah, that I will definitely keep you all informed. I don't have any issue with doing that. Additionally, Giuseppe and I are going to be starting up Node School NYC again, so like that's another kind of venue for that as well.
That's awesome. Was it in hibernation for a little while then?
Yeah, it's been like a year and a half. And so him and I are kind of helping come in and help revive it. So yeah.
Okay, that's really, really cool. I think it's really cool when people take Node School in different directions, because it doesn't necessarily have to be us using the workshoppers all the time. That's just my opinion. I hope people at Node School don't really have a problem with that happening, because it is Node related.
Yeah, I don't think they particularly mind.
Cool. Leader, do you have a Node School in where you're located? I don't actually recall where you are.
I'm from Israel, so no, Node School is not active in my country.
Okay, I see. But
I know Node.js School.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, some of them are more active than not, but the network is actually quite wide. It's entirely possible it might be. There are some cities where there have been Node Schools in the past and it's listed there, but they're just hibernating. I guess kind of like
Yeah, and NYC is definitely like that. Also, there is one in Tel Aviv. I think it might be hibernating.
Oh,
yeah,
so
there is a Node School Tel Aviv.
Cool. That is good to know.
Yeah, in case you want to reach out and do a Docs hackathon yourself. But so I'm thinking if we can make an action item for this, it would go some way towards excuse me, my throat is clogged up. It would go some way towards giving this particular issue some momentum going forward. So I'm wondering if there's no time this month, I'm not sure what we might need for that. Maybe we need some structure. If you're starting up something next month in New York City, Tierney, but you're not able to put time into this month, it's possible after this month's session, I might be able to write up kind of both a report for this month's Node School and somehow evolve that into, hey, this might be how you could do a Docs hackathon. I'm just not sure how useful that would be because it might be a little bit too general.
I mean, any kind of basis is useful, I think. Like having anything, and then what I've found is basically having something, even if it's wrong. Actually, it's better if it's wrong. And then like providing something for people to poke at and like think about is better than like having to kind of start from scratch and think as a group. So like having one person kind of go, you're good. Having one person kind of go do work, and figure something out, put something together, and having other people pick it apart and kind of try to improve it. So I think that's definitely a good framework, and I can probably try to help with that. Do a second round next month.
That's awesome. So maybe in this case, if the plan is then to iterate, which sounds really good to me, is that I could take an action item to just write a report after this month's Node School in a Google Doc, which we then keep alive in that issue. And every time someone runs something like that or wants to run something like that, they can either go there and refer to it and then eventually, refine it based on what they find works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I just made an action item in our notes. Our notes are literally just full of action items. I hope that there's enough context in the issue now that people will be able to understand what that's about. Actually, I'll add a little bit more context. A report about how the docs. Great. Okay. We're at 9:42. Was there anything that people wanted to add to issue number 99, idea docs, host docs hackathon?
Not from me.
Cool. Let's just move on to the last one then. Node.js doc survey, which is issue number 61 in the website redesign repo. The doc survey, I believe this was an issue that was opened by Tierney after a discussion in the user feedback initiative. Would you be able to add some context to that, Tierney?
Yes. So this is the docs survey. Sorry. Pulling it up now.
That's cool. I just threw a link in the website redesign issue. I mean, the link to that particular issue in our Slack,
Yep.
Not Slack, in our Zoom. Too many.
So basically what the user feedback initiative was doing a bit ago, like roughly 6 months ago, was pushing on like, is there anything out, is there a survey that they could send out? So like with questions from us about docs, and then they would facilitate sending it out, setting up the survey, like the questions and like the survey monkey, and then actually sending it out to, I think, over 5,000 person mailing lists from the Node Foundation, just to try to, get some feedback that we can kind of use and consume, kind of poking at, what are docs, are they useful, et cetera, et cetera. And so, there's a few of the questions there, like, what do you like about the docs? What do you dislike about the docs? What could we do to improve the docs? Those are all kind of very similar things, but, just having, 5, 10, 15 questions would allow the user feedback initiative to pull that together and then actually ship that out. So basically providing us a pathway to get end user feedback around what's good about the docs and what we can do to improve them.
That is super useful. I mean, it's when I look at our docs, one thing I do see that's like a little missing, and by missing it's just because it is present in other docs pages, is that it doesn't have a very visible place for people to go and be like, I want to say something about the docs or make a request. Yep. Which is which kind of disconnects us from being able to tap in people's in the moment experience with the docs. So I think this issue goes a really long way towards starting to bridge that gap.
Absolutely. So one additional thing, there is like a while ago when we were starting out the website redesign, one of the suggestions we had from someone was to actually include basically, I don't think it was NPS, Net Promoter Score, but like effectively happy face, sad face, and neutral face on the docs, like on the individual doc pages rather than like the all docs, which is what I always used. But to actually get feedback and then have a form, like a small, input in that we could collect and like say, or let people give us direct feedback about, hey, this thing is broken, or hey, this is wrong, or this worked really well, something like that. And I think that's a good idea. And I think that we kind of put that on the back burner until we're at a place where we are technically implementing stuff. But I really like that idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It could even be rolled out, I think, incrementally. In the beginning, it could be happy, neutral, sad. And later on, it could have further sequences. Whereas if you click on one of them, you can do more things, maybe.
Yep, exactly.
I noticed some docs. I think it was the Docker docs. It's really great because I think you can choose to edit the docs, which I believe we actually have in our documentation side. It's like at the top, it says edit on GitHub somewhere. But in the Docker site, you can choose to do that, but you can also choose to request edits, which I think is really useful for the people who are like, well, I don't really want to edit the docs, but I have a very specific comment to make. Or maybe who can't edit the docs at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Being able to capture that would be super rad. Cool. That's
or
cool.
like you don't know what is wrong, but you know something is wrong. Like that's a very valid thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And like there's an anecdote around that I've had for a couple years now, where a friend asked me to explain how a method worked. I went and looked the method up in the docs. There was no example, but it linked to another method. I clicked through that. There was an example there that was like unrelated. It seemed totally unrelated, but that method had an example and also linked to another method. That method had an example for the original method that I was looking for. So it's like, as a user at that point, I could have clicked like request edit because there's not an example for this, and so I don't know how to use this. And like, can you please add an example? Like that's a very simple kind of piece of feedback. And there's with GitHub now, there's some interesting like issue auto creation stuff that you can do. Although we'd want to rate limit that. And then additionally, you can do custom issue templates and stuff with Probot, which is a good path to follow, I think, if we're gonna want to kind of really enhance this. And with the happy, sad, neutral faces, or that kind of input, that's a relatively good use case for like a serverless architecture. And I think that could even like going full DevRel in this, that could be a good use case for like basically blogging on the Node collection about how we built that with whatever platform or cloud that we end up using serverless for, because I think there's 4 companies with a serverless platform that are member companies. So, that should be relatively easy for us to kind of go through and get resources from one of those companies and like let them contribute to the docs and also, talk about how they did that with their technology. Like, I don't care who it is, just like give them a place to talk about Node.js on their fast platform and how it's powering this aspect of the docs.
Isn't it beautiful when you have synergies like that just within the ecosystem? It's Node as an ecosystem, and we need to make use of the fact that we would be relying on their technologies.
Right. And like, I mean, that's like from a business perspective, you can also get someone to dedicate a team member's time to that. Because, multiple aspects. So yeah, there's, yes, it's great. I love it.
It's, I think website redesign has like pretty solid experiences doing that. We have some awesome partners in Stripe and like RunKit who are contributing time and effort into a project like this. And it's really good to see companies like that step up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. I made a note about that in the doc survey, in our meeting minutes, just so we know and we have context so we can circle back to this later. Sweet.
Awesome.
And going further down the issue to bring this issue up to speed, we had a couple of new contributors express their opinions about like how people feel when docs don't really work. And it was very constructive opinions, and a few of them actually stepped up to make some questions for that doc survey. Specifically, Raisin Bread on GitHub has done a ton of work around it, gone through a couple of iterations using feedback from people in the website redesign team, and produced a final version, which is super rad. Thank you, Raisin Bread. I believe their name is John Anderson. It says that over here. But their handle is Raisin Bread. So they've been really good and really patient, because sometimes that feedback has taken a bit of time on our part. I guess that's a good intro to open source. Things take time sometimes. And moving down, we have that final list of questions, which recently I connected to the user feedback initiative for their review. So it's been cross-posted into the other repository. So I'm not sure next steps are necessary at this point from website redesign. Unless anyone.
I'm looking. Let's see here. So that's in the doc survey, right?
Yeah, and the issue number 61 in website redesign, which I've linked to in the chat. At the very bottom is the link to issue number 106 in user feedback.
Okay, cool.
Quite new. So people may not have seen it.
Yeah, so I mean, for what it's worth, like the survey, we do have to go through the foundation for it. But that won't be like, we can't unfortunately use the Google form that is there, but we can reproduce the questions in the same way. It's a really good example, and I really appreciate that work. But yeah, we're going to go through the foundation via user feedback, and hopefully get that out.
So. Awesome. Yeah, I like whatever form it takes. It's the work that we value in it is the work that went into creating it, not necessarily the final form it happens to be in.
Yeah.
That's super awesome. Yeah, it's stuff like this that's really exciting when someone jumps in. This was a great good first issue. Like, this was a great issue to mark as good first issue, because it seems like a new person was actually able to jump in and, with the help of some of the people involved, put together something of actual value. So this is I think an example I'm going to save in my head to point people at, to say, hey, good first issues work, so you should use them and actually support it. Okay, I'm making a note in that last one that no action items are necessary on website redesign part, on the part of website redesign. But if anyone in user feedback is willing, it wants to hit us up for anything, just like they can come into the issue, of course, and hit us up. So I'll leave this open. Awesome. Did anyone want to add something to that particular issue?
Nope.
Brad, that's pretty awesome. And we got through all 4 issues with 5 minutes to spare. That is what I call a tight meeting. That's awesome. Thanks, y'all. This is good. It's great. Whew. That feels good, getting a meeting out of the way.
Awesome.
Yeah. Shall we end the live stream?
Yes, I believe you have to.
Okay, I have to end the live. Okay. For anyone tuning in on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. We meet every other week, so bi-monthly. So see you the week after next, still in December. It's the holidays, so I might need to buy a hat, like an Xmas hat.
Actually, I mean, what day will it be on? Will it be like on Christmas?
Will it? Do I
no, it'll be on the 20th. Okay.
Might have to theme up. but yeah, I will see you next time. So I'm ending the YouTube stream now. Thanks for joining us. See y'all next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.